Good afternoon, or good morning if you're dialing in from the US. My name is Matthew Stibber, and today I'm going to be talking about HubSpot AI tools. And I'm looking to share some best practices, some guidance about how to get started, some tools that are really worth looking at now that are built into HubSpot, and also share some of our slightly more avant-garde or advanced AI uses, and talk a little bit about how we built them. So without any further ado, I will get started. Thank you for joining. So I come from Articulate Marketing, which I started 20-something years ago. We've done now more than 150 HubSpot projects, and we bring a sort of marketing sensibility to HubSpot AI and automation. And if any of this sort of resonates with you, I would be very happy to hear from you. You can email me, Matthew@Articulate or book a call directly with me in my calendar, and we can have a chat, articulatemarketing.com. And I've been geeking out a lot about a succession of AI epiphanies, including last week generating this picture, which is based on an album cover from the 60s for an album by Jacques Dutronc. And I was fascinated by the angles of this and the photography of it, and so I thought, okay, I will try and replicate this. So at first I started asking AI, here's this image, how did they take this photograph? And it's all to do with lenses and angles and step ladders and things like that, and to get that foreshortening effect. And I thought that's quite a lot of work. And the AI said, well, why don't you just ask, and I was working with Claude, why don't you ask Gemini just to recreate it for you? And I thought that's never going to work. And then I generated this really detailed prompt, took it into Gemini, uploaded some pictures of me, and it did a really amazing job. So that's my latest revelation. Anyway, so geeking out about that. It's important to think about using AI in HubSpot in a strategic way. I think there's two angles into strategic. At the highest level, what is a thing that happens in HubSpot now that if you could make AI do it for you or automate it or accelerate it, what would you pick? Can you reduce preparation time for meetings? Can you accelerate your social media campaign? Can you simplify support or automate a lot of that? Fine. And indeed, in my experience, the more lofty and ambitious the question, often the more interesting the answer with AI. The other angle, and we'll talk a little bit about this, is starting with something that's small, annoying, repeatable, and would give you an easy win. And I think it depends on where your level of AI fluency and your attitude and appetite for risk is. But starting with the question is critical. And doing it inside HubSpot is important because anybody can open an AI chat and ask a question and create a prompt. And lots of people will tell you it's all about the art of the prompt, the crafting of the prompt, and act as this kind of person and do this kind of thing. And undoubtedly much of that is true. But what makes AI really effective is context. And HubSpot has context in bucket loads. It has histories of conversations, it has meeting transcripts, it has campaigns, it has data. So the more of that you have, the better results you're going to get. Now, how you connect the AI with that context is all kinds of interesting. HubSpot is increasingly positioning itself as an agentic platform where you can do lots of AI activity where the context is important. So I think this is a strong argument in sales and marketing for sure, which is my world, to anchor the work, the AI inside the context. So with that in mind, I want to talk about 5 HubSpot tools that are built into HubSpot. There are many, and there are more all the time, and they are getting better all the time. HubSpot's cadence for product improvement around AI is fast and strong, whereas in some of the other areas of its platform, it's a little bit slower to make improvements. And I think that reflects their commitment or their interest or their focus on AI. possibly also their share price, but that's another story. So the first one is Breeze Assistant, which is a chat, AI chat throughout HubSpot, and you can ask it all kinds of questions. But one of the things that I think is very useful and helpful, particularly in a sales context or in a customer service context, is just to ask it to help you prepare for meetings, and it remove that preparation tax. And the way to do it is not to think of it as a sort of omniscient oracle that's going to answer every possible question or think about everything, but a smart assistant that's going to look at the records that are available to it. And of course, the more records and the better the housekeeping in HubSpot, the better context it's going to have. And it's going to bring some of that. It's going to act with better memory than you might have, especially if you weren't in on all of those meetings or didn't write all those emails. So getting it to prepare for meetings is really cool. Now at Articulate, we do some different things, but with AI, and I'll get on to a little bit about how we use AI integrated with HubSpot to prepare for different kinds of meetings. Obviously, never take everything that AI gives you as gospel. It comes still with hallucination warnings and caveats around accuracy and things like that. But increasingly, we're finding that it's the level of hallucination is so small that it can be, the downside is massively outweighed by the upside. Okay. Second area in HubSpot that's really interesting is Content Remix. We have been skeptical about this in the past. I've been a little wary of recommending it. But again, the AI underneath it is getting better. I mean, just look at the difference between, the Claude or ChatGPT that you use today and the Claude or ChatGPT that you used a year ago. But also HubSpot's implementation of it is getting better. And again, as long as you are sat at the pass looking at everything that's going out and reviewing and providing human context, human oversight, and I think this is something that we do as a marketing agency quite well. Content Remix can be a really efficient way of taking some really good content that you might have generated with human input, expertise, and experience, like a webinar, like an interview, like a customer case study, like a really thoughtful research article, and turning it into social media pieces, turning it into landing pages, turning it into emails, turning it into artwork, and just across all of that marketing stuff, it can act as a force multiplier for a marketing team, particularly in areas where perhaps you are less experienced, so ad creation or social media. For us, we're not an ad agency and we're not particularly a social media agency. So those are the two examples that came to mind for us. I think it's really important that you start with some human expertise, experience, authority, right? So, whatever kind of content you're creating now in this age of AI slop needs to be anchored demonstrably in something that isn't just known already to AI. People aren't going to look at your content if they can get the answer already by going and asking Claude. They're going to look at your content if you're bringing something new. The whole world plus the work equals the whole world in this context. Okay. The next thing, and I think this is a really good way of accelerating lead capture and also in customer support, accelerating or reducing the cost and improving the delivery of customer service, and that's customer agents. So this is actually surfacing on your website a chatbot that is powered by an AI inside HubSpot that in turn is informed by a corpus of knowledge that you upload to it. So for example, a marketing bot on your site can answer questions about your products, services, can help you book a meeting, and so on. A service bot can provides customer support and so on, and it can operate 24/7, right? I mean, it doesn't have to be there. You don't have to have somebody staffing that, and that was always the problem in the past with chatbots. Couple of things are needed to make this work really well. Okay, the first thing is you need the corpus of knowledge. A clever agent with bad sources is a bad agent, just as automating a messy process is a messy process with skates on. So, Customer Agent isn't going to repair or fill the gaps in your customer support knowledge base, for example. That's a different job. But if you've got that up to date, or you've got your product literature up to date, or your website is up to date, it can do a really good job of surfacing that, sorting it, filtering it, and presenting it to people. And increasingly, I think people would rather talk to an effective bot with support questions or product questions than wait for a live chat or wait for an email response. It can actually produce a better experience. And I was talking to somebody, one of our clients yesterday, that provides call center software to, for example, debt advisory businesses. And one of the things that they observed was that people can often be quite embarrassed talking about being in debt and actually feel more comfortable talking to an AI bot about it. Interesting question, interesting thought. So having that corpus of knowledge there is really important. And the other thing that has to happen with this to make it work is you need to think about how you hand off to humans. So at what point, because the bots are very good at having guardrails and not hallucinating and only using the knowledge, and when they get a question they can't answer, or they arrive at a particular state in the conversation, they can do things like, we'll send you an email, or can you give us your details, or wait while I connect you with one of our human CSRs. And so thinking all of that through is really important. We suggest starting with quite narrowly scoped trials, like put it on one product page or serve it to some subset of your customers as a support agent, and monitor very carefully the results and see what questions are coming in. Is it able to answer them effectively? Does it have the knowledge to do that? Like most of AI tools in HubSpot and elsewhere, just clicking the button and hoping it works isn't a recipe for success. It's a recipe for risk. And then you can roll it out progressively. The other thing is, we'll talk a little bit about HubSpot credits and pricing a little later on, but each resolution or each conversation has a cost. It's quite a small cost individually, but you want to make sure that you're spending that money to actually solve people's problems and help them, and not just to serve up a sort of an unsatisfactory experience, because if you're paying for it and it's unsatisfactory, that's very annoying. Our philosophy about AI at Articulate is, we want to set the destination, like what is the problem we're trying to solve, where are we trying to go, how does this help the business. We want to design the engine. So with Customer Agent, we want to make sure that the knowledge corpus is there. With Content Remix, we want to make sure that all the brand assets are in there, tone of voice, messaging, and so on. So the repurposing sounds like you. And we want to have our hands on the wheel. So we want to see the work, we want to monitor what AI is doing, we want to see whether it's effective, we want to see emails before they get sent, we want to see Content Remix before it gets published, we want to monitor how chatbots are interacting with people. And I think this is quite a good framing of how to deploy AI. To set the destination, design the engine, hands on the wheel. Okay, let's move on to the next example. So if you're involved in sales, Prospecting Agent is another thing that we have been skeptical of, and goodness knows we've all had those emails where, like this example, that it's pulled something out of the ether and told you something about yourself that you already knew and wasn't really related to what the email was about. I'm so sorry. Look, just so you know, this is a real live webinar. My old dog here needs to be let out, so I'm just going to do that. I'll be right back. Do you remember back before COVID when something like that would happen and somebody would film it and then it would be on the evening news? Now it's just like we're used to animals and family and video conferencing. Anyway, there we are. However, Prospecting Agent is getting better, the underlying AI is getting better, the research data and context is getting better, and you can check every email it wants to send before it sends it. So what it's really doing is drafting emails for you at some scale, and only when you are happy and confident can you switch on more of the automation. So again, hands on the wheel. But what it does is it takes the context and it takes what people have done, and you can identify prospects, bring them in through your own data, and then you can send out targeted, customized, personalized emails crafted by AI. Again, we do a slightly different thing using AI integrated into HubSpot, and I'll talk about that later. But this is a really good tool for smaller businesses or businesses that are looking to add some personalization to sort of relatively large volumes of emails. Okay, so the fifth thing that I've picked of the 5, and there are many more in HubSpot, but these are the ones that were interesting to me, is Data Agent. And this is a really cool thing because what it does is it lets you write a prompt that takes real world data, like look at the website or look at the data inside HubSpot or look at a LinkedIn profile or something like that, and use that to populate structured data in the CRM database. So, is this company in this market sector? Can you tell me if this person is a senior decision maker in this in its business, in his or her business, and so on. So it sort of bridges that gap between sort of fluffy, unstructured chat and structured CRM data. And this is really, I think, powerful and useful and interesting, and solves the one of the challenging things around data hygiene, which is just I haven't got time to review 30,000 contacts in my database, but I kind of need to know what sector they're all in. And I can deduce that for some proportion of them using Breeze Intelligence, what was Clearbit, to, maybe it has that data already. But for some of them, I just haven't got that data, or the business is too new, or I need to go and look somewhere else to get it. And this is a really powerful way of getting at that. You can build these little enrichments into workflows, so you can do it. You can get at it in other ways as well. So you can trigger it at the right point for the right prospects to make sure you're not just blowing a load of credits on populating data for contacts or companies you don't really care about. So those are the 5 HubSpot AI tools that are piquing our interest at Articulate right now. Let me talk about 3 others. So you came for 5 and I'm giving you 8. 3 other things that I think are actually also very interesting and that are affecting the way that we are working quite radically at the moment. So the first one is conversation intelligence, and you will have seen tools like Fireflies.ai and there are others that join your conference calls or join your phone calls and transcribe them and give you perhaps intelligence about them. And it's the same. Oh dear me. Same kind of thing, but it's existing inside the HubSpot context. You don't need extra software. You don't need to mash it together and integrate it. It's just happening inside HubSpot. So that's thing number 1, which is great. Just one less thing to manage. 2, because HubSpot's connected to my calendar, to our calendars and our outlooks, it just shows up in meetings very easily. I just actually don't have to do anything to make that happen anymore. And 3, those call logs are now being logged back into HubSpot against the contact or dealer or company, so that the associations are there. So that just as a call recording and transcribing mechanism, it's the best I've come across. But here's the next step on it. It can start giving you feedback on, are you talking too much, which is often my problem in a sales call. It can give you coaching and advice, and if you've got a lot of people on the phone a lot of the time, this call might be monitored for training and development purposes. Well, yeah, sure, but how many calls can a sales manager join or listen to? But this can give you feedback on scale. It can produce notes about the call and put them into the contact record or deal record. And it's increasingly being sort of integrated into other areas of HubSpot in interesting ways. Here's how we use it. We'll take the transcript, there's a button, you click on it, copy the transcript, and we'll paste it into a Claude chat about a deal, about a prospect. that lives separately. So it's like open the call, copy that, paste it into here. And we've got in that Claude chat in that project skills to give very specific coaching around the kind of consultative selling that we're trying to do in the context of Blair Enns 4 conversation. So it actually knows how we're trying to, what kind of conversation, what kind of meeting we're trying to have. It can extract from the call MEDDPICC scores, so that's the qualification mechanism that we use, and it can then take all that back and put it back into HubSpot using the Claude MCP. So this is the second use of AI with HubSpot that's really powerful, and this closes the loop between those call notes and then back into HubSpot. So increasingly, I am driving my sales CRM process in HubSpot via carefully curated conversations in Claude and the skills that I've built and deployed there. So for example, I'll come off a sales call, maybe it's a value conversation, I'll upload the transcript, and Claude will give me feedback, pretty brutal feedback about how badly I've done it, sometimes increasingly a bit of praise. So I get this ongoing coaching. It'll give me the call notes. It will give me MEDDPICC summaries and update custom properties. We have like scoring built into deals. And because that conversation accumulates over time, so for us, our sales cycle might be 3-4 meetings, might be over a couple of months. It remembers all of those conversations. So at the end of that process, it can spit out input into the proposal. Don't forget that you said you were going to do this, or they wanted that. And if a deal is signed, it can spit out, using our existing format document in Notion, a sales to studio handover brief. So all the idiosyncrasies and kind of observations about the prospect that we've gathered during the sales process, we can pass on to our colleagues in the studio. And that's it. That's incredibly helpful, and it's quite good at picking those things out. And we've got all these skills to do it. But it's got this sort of picture of the relationship, which as I get older, my memory is not so good, and I found that incredibly helpful. And it can do things like use our Apollo or our RFs or other MCP integrations that we've got to go and get information. So it'll go, for example, I can say I've got a meeting with such and such a person, and they've invited their colleague, John Jones along. Can you just research them? And it'll go and find their LinkedIn profile, find them on Apollo, find out what, and come back to me and give me a briefing about that person. This person is going to be probably like this, and they've got this career history, so they're probably going to ask you questions along these sorts of lines, and you might want to have ask them this, or they're new in post, so you might want to ask them how it's going, or if there's something new. All these sort of contexts. It's not really just about making the process more efficient or saving me time, although it does a little bit. It's about making me better, and it's about allowing me to show up well-informed, well-prepared, well-briefed, in a way that if I was the CEO of Microsoft, I'd have a private office that would be feeding me briefs and telling me who I was going to talk to. But now I can just do it with context, with AI. And that's incredibly powerful. And this is a really important point that we're trying to emphasize for everybody at Articulate and our clients. AI isn't here to make us cheaper or faster. It's here to make us better. It's about allowing us to do what humans do really well at a higher level, and sort of deputize and delegate and automate some of the drudge work, like after meetings, updating your HubSpot record and eating your vegetables. Okay. The third thing that we've been finding really useful when we're building quite complicated processes into HubSpot for clients is embedding an AI into a workflow. And this is a little bit different from the Data Hub thing I mentioned earlier. So I'll give you an example. We have a client that sells very complicated engineering products, and they have a team of pre-sales consultants, and they have different specialisms. They have clients with different requirements, and those requirements typically come in via an RFQ email with complicated technical language, but still natural language. It's still written by a person typing, I need this, 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 and this. It has to have this and do this. And they have quite a complicated manual that tells the sales team how to process these incoming emails. So what we did, what I did, because this is why I'm geeking out about it, because I'm really enjoying it, is take that manual and distill it into a prompt, write a processor that ingests those emails into HubSpot. So you email a particular address, and then they just come in via the service hub and they get turned into tickets. Take that email ticket, turn it into a deal by reviewing the data and answering various questions, and then populating data fields in the deal based on what was in the email. So, is it this type of thing or that type of thing? Is it, I'm trying to avoid being too detailed about the client, and it's clever because the prompt, which is 4,000-5,000 characters long, so longer than the limit of a HubSpot AI prompt, is stored in GitHub. So the little bit of JavaScript that we wrote goes to get the latest version of the version controlled prompt, takes the email and some HubSpot context, packages it all up, sends it off via the API to Claude, which then comes back with the answer. It then interprets the answer, which is structured, and puts the data into HubSpot. After which we can then run all kinds of standard HubSpot workflows, like if this is true, assign it to this deal owner, and if this is true, set the close date to this, and if it's this, put the deal value at this, and so on. So you can effectively interject AI into those complicated business process workflows to solve actually really quite gnarly problems that AI is quite good at solving, and then integrate it into HubSpot. Okay, so AI embedded in workflows. And it would be really helpful if I'd run this through an AI spell checker, because I realize it says AI embedded in Warflows. That's the Star Trek version. Okay, so I've got a couple of rules of the road in the last few minutes. We recommend starting with one annoying task and testing it. Small use cases create evidence, and evidence creates confidence. Starting your AI HubSpot journey with a really big thing and then fumbling it is likely to put people off. Let AI own the task, but humans have to own the judgments. You have to keep your hands on the wheel. No owner, no agent. So there has to be a one-to-one mapping between human beings and the tools that you build, so that somebody is responsible and accountable and gets notifications when the thing fails or when there's a problem, or manages the maintenance, manages the GitHub repo, and so on. And once that ownership question is clear, the next question is not how many tools can we build, but what's next and who's going to do it. And that starts to be a sort of more manageable business problem rather than a technological problem. Lastly, of course, there's the vexed question of credits. HubSpot charges you for some of these AI functions. Claude, ChatGPT charge you for access to their API. They come with different prices and accessibility and use cases. What I will say is the vast majority of companies are not using the HubSpot credits that come with their account. Typically, you're going to get 5,000-ish HubSpot credits a month. That's 500 conversations. It's a bunch of enrichments. It's a bunch of data agent actions. And it won't charge you more unless you deliberately and confidently agree to be charged more for more of them. We have a couple of clients who use tens of thousands of credits a month and really find that a valuable investment. So, it is possible to manage this, but if you just see every month 5,000 credits not used, 5,000 credits not used, there is an opportunity to run a trial and test something that effectively is going to cost you nothing. On the other hand, if you're going to start using heavily, thinking about what the balance between using HubSpot credits and API credits on the main LLMs, or using, as we do, quite a lot of Claude, but integrating it into HubSpot, there are choices here that have different cost implications. But it strikes me that most people are afraid of the cost implication, and that stops them doing things, and I think that's a mistake. Definitely iterate and start small. Learning as you go is really important, and the biggest tip I'll give you is something I read the other day, which is automating a messy process with messy context is just going to leave you with a more efficient kind of chaos. So you also need to get the foundational stuff right, like tidy up your contact data, work out what process you're actually trying to automate and document it, and so on. A lot of this sounds like traditional sort of software engineering and change management and project consulting, because it is. Okay. So that brings me to the end of this webinar. We have another webinar coming up shortly about website copywriting, so very distant from AI and HubSpot, but interesting. My colleague Joanna will be running that. If any of this piqued your interest, I'd love to have a chat. Matthew at Articulate Marketing. Thank you very much for joining me. Have a wonderful evening.